Assalamu alaikum guys, welcome back to math class. Today we are on chapter 7 lesson 3. As you can see from the board, we're dealing with volume of spheres. So what is a sphere? It's just a ball. Now one of the words that you need to keep in mind is spherical, and I know it might look a little bit scratched, but I have no control over that because the board, I can't erase it any better than it is. But spherical is understood to represent also the word for ball. So the formula for finding the volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. The second thing that we're going to be dealing with is the volume of a hemisphere. Hemisphere is half of a ball, okay? So if it's half of a ball, then all you have to do is take the volume of a sphere, multiply by half, or divide it by 2, as you did in the previous composite figure of the cylinder that was only half. So I'm going to teach you how to deal with this formula, probably the shortest way possible as well, inshallah. So for your first problem, I'm going to turn you around. We've got another board over here. I'm going to show you, and your instructions are still the same, guys. Determine the volume, go ahead and round to the nearest tenth, or answer to the nearest tenth, use 3.14 for pi, and here we go. So a sphere, it's a circle. So you draw a circle and then you draw a little bit of an ellipse on it, okay, a little bit of a curve, and then on the back, for those of you that like to add the images to your lecture, draw a little dotted line on the back so it gives it a little bit more depth. And then for this problem, I'm going to be dealing with radius. So if you're given a diameter, obviously you're going to have to divide it by 2, but in this case, I'm already giving you that the radius is 3 inches. So remember, our formula is volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. Now go ahead and substitute. I didn't like the way I wrote that b, but okay. Go ahead and substitute the radius and then start doing your math. So we've got 4/3 pi, and then 3 is going to be cubed. First thing we should do is our PEMDAS, 4/3 pi, and then 3 cubed. Plug it into the calculator, guys. 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Usually common mistake is that kids will multiply that base to the exponent and give me a 9. So now from this point, you can switch numbers around. We can say volume is equal to 4/3 times 27 times pi. And usually you want to do this if you're having to answer in pi form. Although I didn't ask you to answer in pi form, I'm still going to teach you just for future math, inshallah. So if you use the calculator, use 4 divided by 3 times 27. When you do that, you should get 36. Don't forget to bring your pi down. Next step, obviously, go ahead and multiply 36 times 3.14, and once you multiply by pi, it's an approximation. On the calculator, you will get 113.04. Now, it did say to the nearest tenth. The value that is in the 10th place is that 0 right there. And the number in the 100th place, which is the 4, tells you what happens to that 0. Obviously, it's a number less than 5. So you're not going to round it up, you're not going to add 1 to it, it's just going to remain the same. And specifically because the instructions said answer to the nearest tenth, then you leave that 10th place. So it's 113 and 0 tenths, and then what are we talking about? Inches. Don't forget your monkeys and birds. Inches cubed. Okay? Now, let me teach you a little bit of a shortcut for those of you that like to take less steps. So from this step, and let me show you, from this step right here, it might save you just 1 step or 2. Remember that we can assume that these are over 1, okay? So I'm going to rewrite it, and I'll say pi is over 1, 27 is over 1, so volume is equal to 4 times 3.14 times 27, and what's 3 times 1 times 1? It equals to 3. So all of this is going to be divided by 3. So remember, Since you're going to go ahead and multiply by that 3.14, the next step, the answer is going to be an approximation. So you've got 4 times 3.14 times 27 divided by 3, and then push enter in the calculator. And that will work for a fancy calculator, even a 4-function calculator. So when you do that, you should again get 113.04. And like I said with this problem, go to the 10th place, and then that 100th place tells you if it rounds up or it rounds down. So volume is approximately 113.0 inches cubed. So it saves us maybe one step. If some of you can round from the calculator, okay, if you have this display on the calculator, and I'll allow you to go from this step to this step, all right? So that is the way you do volume of a sphere. Now, I'm going to turn you this way. I'm going to go ahead and erase this, because how can we apply this to real world examples? So believe it or not, volume of a sphere is important, especially those of you girls and boys that play sports, whether it's basketball, soccer. Obviously, you know that those are spheres, right, that you're playing with. And what kind of volume would a ball have? What do you fill a ball with? You end up filling a ball with air. So the air that is inside the ball, the basketball, the soccer ball, is called volume. So here we go. We've got a real world problem. So if I read it for you, a regulation basketball used in men's basketball has a diameter of about 24 centimeters. The ball is deflating at a rate of 150 centimeters per minute. To the nearest whole minute, how long would it take the ball to be deflated? And I know that some of you all at this point are like, oh my God, here we go into a word problem. You see so many words and you're ready to call it quits. I don't want you to call it quits. It's very, very easy, guys. I'm going to make it easy for you. So number one, if you need to write the question down, I would pause the video, write the question down, and then come back to me. I'm going to continue on though. So first thing I need to do, since they haven't given me the volume, remember right here, the 150 centimeters cubed, this right here tells me that they're talking about volume. So I need the volume of the ball. Now, another piece of information, the diameter is 24 centimeters. But remember that our formula requires the radius. So what I need to do here is I need to divide it by 2, and my radius is going to be 12. This is the radius. Okay? So now go ahead and use your formula. Volume is equal to 4/3 pi r cubed. Go ahead and substitute your values. So volume is equal to 4/3 pi, and then my radius is 12, and you're going to cube that. The next step, go ahead. What's 12 times 12 times 12? So volume is equal to 4/3 pi, and then 12 times 12 times 12 should give you 1,728. So 1,728. And remember, I've said, if you are trying to take the shortcut, you can go ahead and put these over 1, multiply all the numbers on top, which are the numerators, and then multiply all the numbers on the bottom, which are the denominators. So volume is equal to 4 times 3.14 times 1,728, all over 3 times 1 times 1, which is 3. So when you do that math, you're going to get an approximate answer. So go ahead and plug into your calculator 4 times 3.14 times 1,728, and then divide by 3, and then push enter into your calculator. So what you should get 7,234 and 56 hundredths. So the decimal followed by 56. Now, the thing is asking us as well, we've only found the volume, obviously, of the sphere. It's not asking us what's the volume of the sphere. What it's asking us is if it has a leak. So it's obviously there's a hole in it, the air is coming out of it. So if it is deflating at a rate of 150 centimeters per minute, every minute 150 cubic centimeters of air is going out, how long to the closest or to the nearest whole minute? So you're going to have to interpret that decimal. All you have to do, guys, is get the volume, and it's as easy as dividing by 150. Plug it into the calculator. What will your answer be? So if you go ahead and plug it in, you should get approximately 48 and 203 thousandths. Now, it did say to the nearest whole minute. So always come back. What is it asking for? To the nearest whole minute. So obviously, the nearest whole minute, the place value on that is going to be this 8. A whole minute would be that right there, the 8. The 2 tells us, does it go up, does it go down, or does it remain the same, or what have you. So in this case, it takes approximately 48 minutes. So final answer here is approximately 48 minutes. So that word problem was not that hard, right? So now to go for a hemisphere, guys. So hemisphere, where do we see it in life? Many times we see it on top of an ice cream cone, right? So let's go ahead and write a new problem. And this will be your last example. How you draw a hemisphere. So I'll try, guys. I'm not perfect, but here we go. So draw a circle and then draw what looks like a bowl. I hope it looks like a hemisphere. Now, to give it depth, I'm giving you the radius here as well. And the radius here is 5 centimeters. So remember that a hemisphere is half of a sphere. So we're going to take the volume of a sphere and we're going to take half of that. So it's 4/3 pi r cubed. Don't let the fractions intimidate you guys. Go ahead and start by substituting your values. So 1/2 remains there. I'm not doing anything with the 4/3. The pi is still there. And then my radius is 5. My 5 is going to be cubed. So I'm going to be working with 2 parts of the equation. One of the parts is the fractional part, and the other part is that I can work with exponent. I can work with each one independently and bring the answers down. Now, for those of us, when we have 1/2 times 4/3, remember the rules of multiplying fractions. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, get an answer. And if it can be simplified, simplified. Of course, those of you that are a little bit more advanced, you might want to cross simplify. But this number is pretty easy. 1 times 4 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, and 4/6 simplifies to 2/3. So the fractional part is equal to 2/3. So I'm going to come back to my problem. Volume is equal to 2/3. And then don't forget we still have pi. And then use your calculator, 5 times 5 times 5 for those of you with a 4 function, or 5 raised to the power of 3 for those of you that have a little bit of a fancier function. So 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. And remember, those of you that like to take a little bit of a shortcut, assume that these are over 1. All the numerators multiply together. All the denominators multiply together. So the next step is 2 times 3.14 times 125. And then 3 times 1 times 1 is 3. So go ahead and multiply. And once you multiply, remember that it's an approximate answer. So if you multiply the 2 times 3.14 times 1.25, you should get 261.666, and it goes on and on and on forever. But the instructions on these lessons have been to go ahead and answer to the nearest 10th. So go to the 10th place. The following 6, obviously it's greater than 5. So that means I'm going to add 1 to the 10th place. So final answer here is volume is approximately 261 and 7/10. And what are we talking about? We're talking about centimeters, and we are also talking about volume. Remember that in volume, guys, you're always answering with a cubic unit. So inshallah, you found this lesson easy. I tried to make it as simple as possible. Go ahead, log on to your assignment, and don't forget to answer the attendance question of the day. Some of you all are submitting a little bit late, so please, guys, I don't want to mark you absent. Make sure that you're doing all things that are required of you on a daily basis. See you tomorrow in class, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.